Pretty interesting, nice display. Of utility for some of these assets, whether they be NFTs. I much prefer this like done with like an NFT where you get kind of access, but it's just interesting way to utilize technology where it has some utility, right? Where in this case the utility is access, even if there's no underlying fundamental basis for anything else. It's, hey, I'm buying this kind of gamble casino coin, but it's got this special characteristic that gives me access to meet the president of the United States, which is kind of wild. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's awesome, and I think it's the future. I think that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of celebrities. Right now we don't really see a standard use case or a way that anybody can use it, but it leaves the field open for new innovation and new token gating. Whether it's like chats, like special chats that the token, if you have a certain amount or even just one, grant you access to. If you start selling, memorabilia or something, it can, it can allow that medium of exchange to
Mhm.
acquire cool things.
Yeah.
But meeting is, I think that's a big way for people to engage, purchase, and have a reason to hold it. So, and accumulate in the long run too, because if you work your way up to that, what is it, 220 people?
Uh-huh.
You can work over time. You can work your way up to that number, and
Mhm.
be one of those people that are at the dinner holding, getting to
It's
meet.
interesting because, it's like almost like an experience, right? Like where people value different experiences, different things differently. So a lot of people be like, oh, this is worthless. This has no value. Well, if it's valuable to you to get to meet the president of the United States, there's value in that, right? So, and it can be used for other things too. There are other projects that can potentially offer different experiences, right? Like, once you go on a vacation, you spend the money, you're like, your money's all gone or whatnot. And I go, you spend it, but you get that experience, you get that unique thing, right? Like, obviously, it doesn't compete with something like Bitcoin, which is like a
Sure.
sound money for all of humanity.
Right.
But it is something that to some people may have value, right?
Little bit of Charlie in the Chocolate
A
Factory
little bit of
aspect.
a little bit of Charlie in the
Get your
Chocolate
golden
Factory.
ticket,
Get your golden ticket, baby. I think that's a good take there, Mr. Manos. All right, Paul, what do you got next for us? Let's queue up here. Oh, Scott Besant. He's been doing a lot of public talks and stuff the past couple weeks with a lot of the economic turbulence that we've seen. So here he says, economic energy abundance sparks economic abundance. That's why we must pursue an all of the above approach to energy development. This means investing in fossil fuels and, where it makes sense, renewables. But here, let me be clear. Developing countries can't afford the luxury belief that all energy must be renewable energy. Men and women in these countries are simply trying to put food on the table, not virtue signal to their friends and colleagues. The priority for developing countries must be affordable baseload generation, and often this means gas and other fossil fuel-based energy production. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the chart. I don't know if, Paul, maybe you can find it, but it just shows like the wealth and prosperity and like happiness of countries. And it's like right next to it is just the chart of like energy production. Like, do they have access to electricity? And like the charts just like move in lockstep, right? Like the more energy a country has, the more successful, wealth, quality of life, all of those things just kind of go right with it, right? So obviously you need energy for to do all sorts of things, to make food, to do, pretty much whatever, right? You need energy to have lights in your home. You need energy to have clean water and all these different things. So, so I think he's touching a nerve here, or an issue that has been, constantly debated. But right now, people don't, like, especially in a third world country, like they don't have the benefit of like trying to virtue signal over climate change and all these other different things, right? When they like literally don't have clean food, clean water, and, they can't provide the basic necessities of life. So all that stuff kind of has to come first.
Innovation is great, but I mean, you have something that works and you have infrastructure for fossil fuels in general. It's tough to get away from it for developing countries. I think you got to kind of stick with what is known and what works for these places where they don't have the resources to do otherwise.
What do you think, Jeff?
I mean, not to mention like the opportunity more energy brings to your lifestyle and everything else that comes along with it. What comes to mind is didn't Trump do some sort of a deal with El Salvador on nuclear energy?
I think I don't know anything about that.
I don't either.
What I do know is they had like the volcano. They were doing some Bitcoin mining out of the geothermal volcano, so I know about that. But the other stuff I'm not sure of. But I think a lot of these other alternative energy sources and renewable energy sources are going to continue to grow and be a major part of going forward. But we've got to just solve the problem first, and then as the cost of panels and the cost of batteries and the cost of renewables continues to come down like it has, it'll be more economically feasible to just deploy those, right?
Right.
But there's also the issue of having some baseload generation of maybe non-renewable sources that will allow you to have energy when the wind's not blowing or when the sun's not shining or whenever there's something else going on, right?
And just to kind of look at it, the most basic view is like farmers had to stop working when the sun went down. So this kind of allows around the clock work to happen and power, the power grid or infrastructure, machineries to work. So
I'm really impressed by the way Besant has been conducting himself in the public and communicating the messages of the current administration. I think it's definitely smart of them to have him out front and foremost, really kind of dealing with the media, dealing with communication to the people. So this is just another example of that. Here's a post by WW. The average energy consumption is actually the most important factor in measuring the living standards of people in different countries today, at least more important than the per capita intake of vegetables, fruits, meat, and other nutrients. In the 1990s, the average income of ordinary Japanese was 30 to 40 times that of ordinary Chinese. But today, the average income of ordinary Japanese is only twice that of ordinary Chinese. Yet everything is much cheaper in China. The example of the Soviet Union made us all realize that if people's living standard was significantly lower than that of the other party for a long time, communism and socialism would gradually lose its appeal among people. And in fact, democracy and freedom will be the same. So very interesting.
So what
Kind
exactly?
of goes hand in hand in what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. So they're saying that the Japanese, the average person versus the wealthiest person.
They're just saying the average person, how much energy they use. It kind of just talks about that. But here it's showing the EU versus China. And we've known that, over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the average life of a person in China has improved drastically. The middle class they've been fostering a middle class. The quality of life for people has grown tremendously. And it shows that, that's because per person, they're using more energy every year, right? Like every person is having more access to energy, fuel, different stuff like that. That's kind of the argument that's being made here.
History, not to go into any conspiracies, but history has shown that like energy kind of was, contained and not really like there's been other better methods of energy, but we don't use it because we depend on, a certain type of energy, and certain, people make money off that certain type of energy and they don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I
the
think
voltage wars or whatever, right? With like Westinghouse and
yeah.
and Edison, Westinghouse, and
ACDC.
Yeah.
I've heard a little bit about it. I don't know too much about it, so I can't really comment on it. But what I will say is that, in a capitalist society, right, like everybody has a profit economic incentive. So if clean energy or freer energy is cheaper, right, like utilities and energy providers are going to use that because they're going to save more money and be able to make more money when they sell it to the peasants, which are us. And you know what? They'll pass on some savings. Like their costs will go down 80%, and they'll turn around to the peasants, which are us, and they'll be like, hey, we're going to lower your bill by 50%. But actually, their spread went up, but the cost went down for everybody. So it's not necessarily a zero-sum game. There's a way that everybody can actually win off this, right? So as those types of energy become more and more cost efficient, they're going to continue to be deployed. And that's, in fact, what we've actually seen over time. All right, Paul, let's take us to the next take here. So I guess there was a story today that came out that said that I guess Musk and Besant were having a dispute in the West Wing. That was a shouting match, which I think is kind of interesting. It's actually kind of cool to see that, if it is true. I mean, hard to know. What Axios has reported so many false things over time. So who knows what, if there's any truth to this whatsoever. They're just trying to continue to drive a wedge through people in the administration, which they've already been, many of these news agencies have been caught trying to do already. But even if it is true, it's actually a good thing, right? To have open debate, to not just have a bunch of yes men. And Jason here pointed this out, and I believe I already commented on this one, Paul. So you don't even need to do that because I already.
Right, but I'm making them aware that you're discussing it live.
Oh, okay, all right. I think
because I couldn't comment
Yeah.
from our main channel because
Gotcha,
his
gotcha.
comments are limited to subscribers.
Okay, all right.
And that's worth those $5, isn't it?
I don't have any inside information, Jason says. I'm not actively involved with politics, but I do think it's cool that Trump has created an extremely qualified team of rivals who sometimes battle over important decisions. That's preferable to the yes men that inevitably infect organizations, right? So I think this idea of like a freedom of thought and like the best ideas win, and sometimes you have to passionately make your case, and when you've got 20 to 30 people of that are from different backgrounds, from different fields, from different some are blue, some are some are Main Street, some are Wall Street, some are blue collar, some are white collar, different all different backgrounds, different experiences, different even sides of the political aisle, right? Trump's got Republicans and Democrats and former Democrats in his administration, independents like RFK Jr. So you've got all these different people, and there was a broad-based coalition that was formed to get Trump elected, essentially, which was pretty much the rational, sane people in the room kind of all came together and said, we don't know what the hell is going on over here, but at least we have something like somewhat reasonable here, right? So, there's going to be disagreements, and I think it's a definitely a healthy sign to see that it's not there's freedom of thought and expression, and freedom to debate and have discourse and have disagreements, and that's consistently what I've heard about Trump behind scenes from many, many people, many stories that people that have talked to him, is that he really is willing to change his mind on issues. He's willing to debate with you. He'll ask you questions. I mean, I think Chamath said this, and many other people have said this, that he might not end up agreeing with you at the end, but he will hear your opinion and let you make your best argument, right? So I think if this is true, this is definitely a healthy sign of things.
100%. I think there's a really interesting historical parallel here with Abraham Lincoln. His cabinet was historically very much at odds politically on a lot of different issues, but he had a very broad range of ideas and thoughts that he brought to the table so that he could hear everyone's opinions. And especially in a time in the country when there was such a big divide, having that broad base of opinion and discourse was actually very beneficial to him as a leader. So I think that that's a kind of an interesting thing, if true, that there is a lot of kind of discourse in between the Trump administration. That's interesting. See how that pans out.
You want to chime in here, Jeff, or?
I mean, I think it's healthy. Like it changes not everything you mentioned, but plus perspectives. Like if you're looking at something from one perspective and someone else has an entirely different perspective, and they state a case that is, helps you understand that other perspective. I think it's healthy for growth. So I think healthy, as long as you could come back to the common goal and you have an understanding of what's going, what the mission is. It's super healthy. We need that. Like you said, you can't have just yes men and doing, you need to have that pushback, that feedback from.
Yeah. What do you got next for us, Paul?
Did you want to check out any of the comments? Usually I think there's
let's see here.
interesting
So
points made.
I agree from Farzan. I agree. Yeah,
It's just that typically Jason's very critical, of the Trump.
yeah. I mean,
admin, so
he
it's
does
nice
have a
to-
lot of. Well, he's got to give him credit. He does try to keep an open mind, and he's willing to also engage on certain issues. And he might disagree. Some things he likes, some things he doesn't. I think it's healthy to have that discourse where you voice those things, right? And I know we've talked about some of his takes that we've disagreed with. So, let's give him the benefit of the doubt here, right? He's got a great take. Let's talk about it. All right, let's see the next one here. Another chime in from Besant. We must make the IMF again. The IMF was once unwavering in its mission of promoting global monetary cooperation and financial stability. Now it devotes disproportionate time and resources to work on climate change, gender, and social issues. These issues are not the IMF mission. And I think we've really seen this across the board, where you've got your military's like your job is for defense and to fight wars and to fight battles, and you're focused on all these political sideshow, gender issues or whatever that has nothing to do with what your mission is. And I think he brings a voice of reason to this issue to just say, how are people are going to buy in and trust institutions that have a responsibility if they're not focused on that responsibility? They're doing all this other sideshow bullshit that people are totally, some people agree with, some people don't, but it causes all this chaos, division, has no place. The IMF has no bearing response. It has nothing to do with what their mission is. Why the hell are they even focused on any of those issues at all? It's just chaos, right?
What is the mission of the IMF?
Well, to foster monetary cooperation and financial stability, of all different countries in the world, right? The International Monetary Fund, that's what it stands for, right? So, why are you focused? It's just kind of crazy, right?
Like that, the Muhammad Ali, look at this hand while
Yeah.
hit you with distracting you
yeah.
from
Yeah.
what's really happening.
What do you got on this, Ethan?
I mean, just it's classic.
It's common sense, but-
Classic government. It's just
Yeah.
too much time and too much money allows them to get sidetracked doing a million different things.
Yeah.
Spreading the tentacles of government into things where it doesn't belong. Just classic. I mean,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. It's just you need to kind of stick to your lane and do what you're supposed to be doing.
100%. Move us along, Paul. What do you got next? Oh, I thought this was funny. Go to the meme. CNN behind closed doors. Well, this is one of my favorite memes I've seen. The Babylon Bee, their class. They always do such a great job. CNN behind closed doors. Pope is still focused, sharp, and energetic. I know it's sad news. Unfortunately, the Pope has passed away, so that is sad. And there will be a new Pope eventually. But I guess they're just making fun of the whole how long they lied about Biden's mental acuities. So just classic Babylon Bee. All right. Take us to the next one, Ball. So this one I thought was funny. There was actually two takes. So go to the take right before this one, Paul, because I tagged them both next to each other. So AOC, yeah, you can put them in orders. AOC was caught flying in a private plane after claiming that she's never flown in one before and exclusively flies with American Airlines only. Here's a look at and inside the plane. The biggest irony behind this whole ordeal. She's flying on this plane for the Fight the Oligarchy campaign. Nothing says fighting the oligarchy quite like flying in a private jet. AOC is a born liar. And you know, it just shows you the hypocrisy of some of these people, right? It's like, you can't even make this shit up. Like, these skits just write themselves. Paul, go back to the previous take because it shows the receipts. People are like, oh, did she really say that? I was thinking, did she actually say that? And then here we go. Here are the receipts. Make Elon fly 100% commercial if he's so confident. And someone says, a lot of the people who want to cut aviation safety do not fly commercial. And she goes, why don't you fly commercial? And then the comment is, why don't you fly commercial? And she goes, I do. I commute to DC on either rail or commercial flight. Believe it or not everyone wants to screw over the public for personal profit. A bizarre idea to many these days. And then here we are. Only how many days later is this? This was 2 months later, and there she's flying around with Bernie on the private jet on the taxpayer dime. I mean, you just can't make this shit up. I mean, these people are such hypocrites, such liars, so full of shit. But it really goes back to this idea, of how I believe the left and the right operate, right? Like, at least right now, at least right where we're at in this current discourse, is that, you know, and again, the left was at 21% approval rating. I think that's the approval rating of the Democrats right now. And, you know, the Republicans are 50% plus, barely, but still, you know, not great. But like, the difference is stark in the sense that we see all these issues with immigration right now happening where, every illegal alien, criminal, gang member needs to have due process and this, that, and the other. And like, there's an argument to be had there. But the difference is, like, when the left has power, they don't give a fuck about any of that. Like, hey, follow the law, follow this. They don't care, right? They're ultimate hypocrites. It's whatever will give them power, whatever will make them look good. It's such a double standard. And if you look at I think it's Sawolinsky's Rules for Radicals, he talks about all this, where it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, like, there's no sense of honor. Like, they'll literally lie to your face about something and then turn around the next day and do the exact opposite, right? Like, there's no, like, the important thing for them is winning. It doesn't matter. There's no principles. It's like, you know, say all this stuff like, oh, you're breaking the Constitution, to the other side. And like, the right is more like, yeah, we want to follow the Constitution. You know, we don't want to do all those things. And then all of a sudden it's like, when they get in power, they're like, fuck that. We don't give a fuck about that. We're just going to bring in 20 million illegals, gang members, fucking whatever. Bring them all in. Haiti, fucking Mexico, Venezuelan gangs, whatever. Bring them in. No due process, no nothing. Dump them in the middle of cities and towns across America. Fucking fuck over all of the people who live there, like, just dumping a bunch of people in their communities who now, like, are going to, you know, suck resources from the schools, from the medical system, from everything, right? Put them on, you know, give them social security numbers, put them on Medicaid and Medicare and all this shit. Like, it's just total chaos. And then, like, now that the shoe's on the other foot, it's like, oh, yeah, you need to follow the Constitution. We don't want to do this to these people. So the hypocrisy and the level of insanity behind this is just absolutely insane. And AOC is a perfect example of that hypocrisy. She literally is literally the epitome of hypocrisy herself. Honestly, that's how I feel.
I don't know if it's like a left or a right thing, because it same can be said from both sides. I think that's more like of a political thing. Like, for example, look at when Obama took over presidency, he was adopting Bush administration for I think, what was it, like 3 years or something before we started doing well. But now in this administration, it's been 90 days and the markets go down a little bit, and it's all the current, you know, nothing. The same thing is not said about, you know, when you flip the page, or you know, it's the shoes on the other foot now. It's the current administration's fault, not the last 3 years. So it's just, I think it's more of a political thing versus left or right. I think they're just going to.
So you think it's. Yeah, I just, man, after reading like a lot of the Sawolinsky stuff and the Rules for Radicals, it's just like, you're watching it weaponized right now. Like, the right doesn't go and like fucking burn down private companies and fucking burn down entire city blocks and like do all this crazy type of shit we're seeing with these vandals burning Teslas and, you know, torching buildings and stuff like that. I mean, the worst thing you can get out of the right was like the whole January 6th thing. And then like we look back and it's like half the people were feds. They let everybody inside. What did they do? They broke a couple windows. Like it's just not even comparable, really, you know, especially with the BLM riots and all the shit that literally burned down entire cities, cost trillions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars or however in damages in these places. It looked like you took videos of some of these places and it looked like you were walking through Afghanistan, you know, like straight up. I mean, crazy. You walk through Minneapolis and it's like you go 3 or 4 blocks and it's like everything's burning to the ground. Like the right doesn't really do that, as far as I know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, you know, all this violence and like all this type of behavior we're seeing from the fucking left, and a lot of it is funded through what seems like a lot of these NGOs and all this bullshit that's happening. So yeah, I guess that's the way I see it right now. But you're entitled to your opinion, Jeffrey. What do you think, Ethan?
I mean, I kind of agree with what Jeffrey's saying. I think a lot of it, comes down to just, people that have power are going to abuse power. And it's not a right or left thing. It's just a power thing. But I do think, to your point, a lot of the, corruption, I mean, to a certain extent, I feel like conservative voters tend to hold their representatives to a higher standard, whereas a lot of more liberal voters, if there's like this kind of horseshit with AOC, like it's kind of like no one's going to call her on that. But you saw with the recent Signal Gate scandal, I know tons of conservative friends who were like, someone needs to resign. Like this is unheard of. And like there was obviously no one did, and it was kind of a big black mark on the administration now. But I think people will call out crap when they see it. So I think there's kind of a little bit of a difference in just the voter base, just anecdotally noticing it. But I think to an extent, people in power are going to try to abuse their power, and that's just the end of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we have the Constitution, right? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, I guess I just, for all of Trump's bark, there's very little bite, I think.
I agree.
He's all bark and no bite. And like what we saw like from the last administration, like literally it's already coming out. We already knew they were literally directing these, political attacks, trying to put their opponent in prison. I mean, that's some crazy shit that you just don't see in America, right? Like we have elections. We don't just try to put our opponent in prison if, we want to go after them if they're winning in the polls. So, I'm a little more jaded, but hey, I like the different viewpoints and I respect that, guys. I absolutely, I love it. I love to hear different viewpoints of how people look at it. So
I totally think that like if you took something from the right side and put it on the left or vice versa, you would there is a huge difference there. I think that's why there is a left and a right.
Yeah.
So, but
I found this little tune here. This is great from Freedom Tunes. Let's give him a little shout out. Why don't you play this, Paul? Can you play the sound on it so we can react to it live?
Definitely.
Yeah, let's start it over.
it's muted.
It's muted, yeah.
Extra, extra! Trump deported a U.S. citizen who didn't even break the law.
No way! Really?
Yeah. Okay, but did that really happen?
Well, technically, he was an undocumented U.S. citizen, and he did break the law, but only in the sense that arson is still illegal. Technically.
Well, I'm already feeling emotions, so none of those distinctions matter.
What? The story was a complete lie. A lie? Because of some technicality? How about this? Trump deported a community organizer even though they were born here and never broke the law. Just because they were Hispanic.
Oh my gosh, I'm so emotional about that.
And when you say he was born here...
The world. He was born in this world, human like the rest of us, technically.
in Italy. And he wasn't in a gang?
Oh, I get it. When white people do it, it's community organizing. But when a Venezuelan does it, he's in MS-13, technically.
Yeah, seriously.
You've got to be kidding me.
Oh, you just want to blow that off? Well, how's this, you monster? Trump deported an aspiring nuclear physicist whose family had been here since the Mayflower, simply because he got a tan last summer and looked a little brown.
I feel I need to ask for clarity.
Clarity? I think it's clear you're going to hell.
By here since the Mayflower, do you mean he's of Aztec descent?
Technically. He was also technically...
A child trafficker. We're done
Oh
here.
my gosh. This is so, I mean...
Just another uninformed voter with his fake news.
I mean, it's just classic. I mean, you can't even make this shit up because like that's literally what's happening right now. Like you can't even make it up. Like the guy, like this Albrego Garcia guy that was over there we talked about last week is like, oh, he's just a nice guy, a Maryland man. They keep calling him a Maryland man, and then like the more Trump just like the administration just releases like, oh, these are his MS-13 gang tattoos. Oh, here's the domestic violence order. Oh, here's him getting arrested or pulled over with 7 people in the back of a truck that he's bringing in that have no documents. Oh, here's this next thing. Just like they just peel back the onion. And it's like make the media look so fucking ridiculously stupid, and that's literally what we've seen. I mean, so like this is not even an exaggeration. It's just it's literally comical. But it's sad how uninformed people are and how bad of a job the media does.
It's like the girl was like saying, and like
Yeah.
it's a weaponization of emotion.
It's exactly
like
what
that's
it is.
exactly what it is.
Yeah, they're weaponizing emotions, but
Because I don't think you look at a single, I don't think you ask a single person in the United States and, they would vindictively say they want someone's life to be worse by
Yeah.
any means. But, there's definitely ways to go about coming into the country and things like that. But when you weaponize emotion and be like, oh my gosh, this Maryland man,
yeah, I mean that's
it's.
I think that's what again, and that's how I feel. The modern left has become that. I mean, it's just all emotion. No actual. This is how I feel currently. I mean, I'm just getting more and more alienated and more just like pissed off because it just gets more ridiculous. We've got like natural disasters here, stuff happening, and hurricanes wiping out entire towns. We got the Amish over there rebuilding, literally south of North Carolina or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And like we've got Democrat politicians flying to El Salvador's fucking mega prison, gang prison, to fucking meet and sip margaritas with Kilbrar Garcia Villegas or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah,
I mean it's
funny
literally
how
comical. It's like ridiculous.
No one's talking about Tennessee anymore. No one's talking about Hawaii.
Yeah.
Those communities were devastated, and we just moved on past that.
Yeah.
We'll worry about the MS-13 gang
We got to go
members
fly over to meet the
that are in
MS-13
the
gang members.
Venezuelan prison, so.
But it tells you why the the approval rating's at 21%. I mean, that's the last data we have. I mean, that's atrocious.
Yeah.
Tech in Italy.
Technically.
I think it's an opportunity for people to also to understand that to strengthen themselves. Not just mentally or but emotionally. Like it's important to not allow your emotions to feed into a story. Like to kind of like get the facts and where is the story coming from or why it's important. What else is going on? Like you said, what else is happening in the world that they can be covering. But
Well, it just highlights the framing of the media, how they frame stories and do
Yeah.
the titles, and how they manipulate and lie and gaslight. It's just total bullshit. They basically create a story, and then afterwards they go look for facts that confirm their story. Like that's literally how the modern journalists and media is working, like the corporate media.
One of my favorite things to do is
Uh-huh.
to take and like go look at an article on CNN or MSNBC, and then go look at an article on Fox News that covers the same story, and just read through and just see how they frame the events, and like the spin is just insane, like from both sides.
Yeah, from both sides.
From
You're
both
not wrong.
sides.
You're
Yeah,
not wrong.
the spin is insane. So it's a fun practice to do to go look at a story and compare the views because it's wild.
and then go actually see the source itself.
Yeah.
Like you get the left, you get the right, and then you go watch like that meeting in with the tech in Italy. and like listen to it for yourself and kind of
Yeah.
see where they were coming from with
Yeah.
each point of view.
Yeah. I love when Trump held up his tattoo. He took a picture on like after all those idiots flew to El Salvador mega prison. He like takes the guy's thing and it's like just a clear MS-13 tattoo. It's got the
So that was real? That wasn't Photoshop?
that was 100% real. Well, what they did was they photoshopped the meaning of the symbols on top because it was like a butterfly, I think was the first one, which stands for an M, mariposa, and then it was like a skull or something. I mean, I'm exaggerating here, but it was like a skull, and then which stands for S, and then there was something like 13, and then above they just put this is a classic MS-13 gang tattoo on the guy's hand. Just classic. What do you got here for us, Paul? You pulling up something for Michael Saylor?
Yeah, so onto current events regarding Bitcoin. I just thought
Yeah.
that this was an interesting touch on. Michael Saylor has been buying up tons and tons of Bitcoin. He has currently about 3% of the supply under strategy. And here he's saying how he'd like to get that up
If
to
I'm
10%.
if I'm lucky enough to grind at 10% of the supply, Bitcoin's going to be 50 million a coin. Yeah, I mean it's no surprise. That's pretty much what Strategy has become. Strategy B, right? The new name of the company. I mean, like they are becoming a Bitcoin bank, and I'm curious to see because people are just thinking it like, oh, it's just a Bitcoin treasury. But when you have this asset that's just pristine collateral, there's a lot you can do there, right? Like as a Bitcoin bank and lending and certain things. I mean, I'm really interested to see how that evolves and what that turns into. And I think people are right now, they're just kind of like evaluating the stock as just this basically treasury that holds Bitcoin, and like just thinking about it from just a price of Bitcoin. Like if price goes up, price goes down, whatever, the stock goes up or down. But I think there's something much deeper going on here in strategy and game planning for what comes next as hyper Bitcoinization happens and Bitcoin becomes more adopted and a bigger part of the financial system, which we're already seeing before our eyes, right? And the fundamentals are like, I couldn't imagine, a better time fundamentally to be involved in the space than right now. I mean, so much is happening. Like price be damned, in the short term goes whatever, but like the fundamental things that are happening right now from corporations, from nation states, from our government here in the U.S., it's absolutely insane. Like
Circle's got a new application that allows cross-border payroll and cross-border capital settlements and things like that. So that's like across the world. That whole 3 to 5 thing is about to go extinct. Like we're gonna have instant settlement, and it kind of globalizes too, like opportunity. Like people that are on the other side of the world will have the opportunity to interact and exchange that value with someone here in the U.S. And with this new SEC and things that are happening,
we can talk about that too. We're going to, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just it's a game. We're going to start to see things that we can apply to our everyday life. That's going to change the way that we move around every day.
Paul, why don't you take us to the next take?
Did you want to hear his take on this?
No, it's okay. He's super bullish Bitcoin. I know where he's at. Oh, show that chart right there. The Gavin Newsom effect. Well, the max exodus of California. Flip other states Democrat. This is an interesting take, but the reason I highlighted this is just to show so people understand just how many people have fled from California over the past couple years, and it's truly staggering. And like to actually visually see the migration flows of people leaving certain states is wild, right? Like you see Texas and Arizona and Florida getting a huge chunk, even Nevada, but kind of wild to witness that. So. I've never seen a tool that actually visualized it as well as this one did, but I think that would be insightful for our viewers. So good job too.
Little black dots.
You were one of those little black dots. So kudos to Terrible for pointing that out. All right, let's go to the next take.
But you got to think that most of those people that are fleeing California probably have problems with
the politics.
Liberal policies.
Yeah. So
that's, who knows? I mean, if they're more midline voters, it could go one way or the other. But
yeah, I would say probably people leaving more so lean more to the right because they were fed up with the policies, which that would be my analysis, right? But the argument from us in the red states is like, hey, don't come here and vote for the same bullshit and make our fucking states work. Like if you're gonna do that, stay in California, right? So, all right, Paul, let's go to the next take here.
I genuinely like just on this topic real quick. I believe that we outsourced the brightest of each state, those critical thinkers, independent thinkers, and it consolidated these conservative red states because those who were leaning in a direction, perhaps more centrist, found themselves without a party in these blue states, right? So in a way, I think we actually have become more concentrated. As we saw with, for example, this was largely due to other influences, but Dade County, right, voting red for the first time in maybe ever, largely because of the influence of Venezuelans or whatnot who know socialism. Cubans, right, who weren't buying into this whole welfare state socialist ideal that the Democrats were pushing. They know that comes with the ultimate cost of freedom eventually. So I think I'm curious. I don't think these people will be voting the same way.
I think you're probably right. I think it is people that are fed up with the bullshit, the high taxes, the crime, all the BS that are leaving. So, we've actually like Florida used to be a purple state, like a swing state, but like Florida now is like very red as people have come and fled New York and fled California to come here. It has turned into a super red state. So, I think that's hits the nail on the head. So we talked about this right here with the jet flight. So I pulled this because I was saying it has been revealed AOC took 5 private jet flights across the U.S. in the past week, costing taxpayers over $77,000. Like, I want to know what jet she's using to go for take 5 private jet flights for only $77K. That's a pretty damn good deal. I'm not gonna lie. So maybe she's smarter than she looks, because when Usually costs like 25 to 50K a flight, at least
Paul,
for
how
me.
much is jet fuel going per
I've never,
gallon
se-
right
I've
now?
never seen I've never seen
Let's
5 flights
find
for
out.
77K. That's a pretty damn good deal.
I
So I need to talk to AOC. Give me a call if you see this, because I want to know who's flying you on the jets.
She's taking shuttles, but taxis or shuttles.
I don't know
back.
what's going on, bro. But for five flights for only 77K, that's one hell of a deal. Because let me know. I want to use her back office airline. I want to know what it is. Yeah, how much is a gallon of jet fuel going for these days? It's pretty cheap.
Wow.
U.S. Gulf Coast, we're down to $1.92 per gallon.
Jeez,
The natural average at airports is $6.23 per gallon.
that sounds a bit
Yeah.
more what I was expecting.
Yeah, Wisconsin is $4.29. All right, it's interesting. All right, Paul, let's move along to the next story. We got a lot of stuff to cover. We got to kind of move a little bit here. There's a lot of stuff I want to get to that is just if we spend
wondered.
too long on each thing, we're not going to be able to talk about all this cool stuff. As much as I want to talk shit about AOC all day.
I wonder if she would be doing that if the previous administration was still in, because the the fuel prices were so much.
Oh, it
now
would be
that-
way more.
Right.
Yeah. This is a cool story about Thomas Sowell, who's I'm a huge fan of. So, Thomas Sowell was once a committed Marxist, even after Harvard, even after Milton Friedman. So, what changed his mind? It wasn't a book; it was working in government. Here's the story. So you're gonna have to open up the thread so we can read it because it's about 4 or 5 posts, I think. In his 20s, Sowell was all in on Marxism. He read deeply, argued fiercely, bought encyclopedias to understand class theory. By the time he got to Harvard, classmates called him the Marxist guy. He believed it, not casually, but seriously. Back then, Sowell worked as a messenger in New York City. His commute took him from Harlem to Manhattan, from the poorest neighborhoods to the wealthiest skyscrapers. Day after day, he asks, why does this economic disparity exist? Need you to scroll down more, Paul. Marxism offered an answer: oppression, exploitation, capital versus labor. It felt coherent, even moral. So he dug deeper through books, theory, and debates. It didn't feel radical, it felt like truth. He earned his master's at Columbia, took classes with Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago. Still a Marxist, that didn't change until he saw how government actually works. At the U.S. Department of Labor, Sowell was tasked with studying minimum wage laws in Puerto Rico. The key question: why was unemployment rising? 2 possibilities. 1, minimum wage laws were killing jobs. Or 2, hurricanes had ruined the harvest. Sowell had a simple idea: test it. If the plantations were still standing after the hurricane, it wasn't the weather. It was the law. He didn't need ideology. He needed data. He brought the idea to his team, and that's when it hit him. They weren't curious. They were nervous. Because if minimum wage laws hurt the poor, the Department of Labor might be the problem, and no one wanted to say that. That was the moment Sowell realized government isn't driven by truth or data or public good. It's driven by its own incentives. That's when the Marxist cracked and the classical liberal emerged. He never got the crop data, but he got something better: a real-world education in incentives, bureaucracy, and political self-interest, and he spent a life explaining it to the rest of us. I just loved that story. That was such a cool story. It's like, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And like once he really got out of all the indoctrination camps and he got to the real world and he actually was able to see, it was like, oh, this is all bullshit. Oh, they don't want to look at the actual data? Oh yeah, it's just total bullshit. So I thought it was a classic thing. So Thomas Sowell, he's got all sorts of such great quotes, such great books. One of my personal heroes. Like, I just love to read his testimony, his story, hear about his life, and he's a fascinating voice. So highly recommend everybody read some Sowell if you haven't had a chance.
And here's ex-user at Kanza says, he should have just read Mises.
Yeah, he
wouldn't
should
have had to test it. Tell that to our officials.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to get outside the indoctrination that you're sort of raised and brought up in, right? So you have to actually, be able to see over the fence that you're the yard of where you're brought up in, right? You have to be able to entertain other ideas, and it's hard for a lot of people, right, to break that mold, to actually look at the evidence and the data, right? I mean, it was very clear to many of us Austrian economists who believe in Austrian economics and like saw what was happening after COVID and all the money printing, and like we knew inflation was going to fucking skyrocket. It was just so obvious, right? But if you're in this other mindset of this, if you're in this delusional fantasy, like you're not capable of seeing beyond the walls of your prison, essentially, your mental prison. So I just thought it was a cool story. Take us to the next.
Matt,
yeah.
real quick,
Uh-huh.
can you explain what who Mises is and why someone reading him would arrive at this conclusion? What school of thought does he follow?
Well, he's an Austrian economist, right? So Ludwig von Mises is a famous Austrian economist, essentially. But highly recommend reading some of his work, some of his ideas. It isn't really taught like Mises and Hayek are not taught in most schools, right? You don't learn about those economists. You learn about Milton Friedman, you learn about Keynes, but you don't really learn about Hayek, and you don't really learn about Mises because they're part of this Austrian economist school of thought. And in the current way the system works with the Federal Reserve and having government essentially have a communist council set the price of lending and loaning in the country is like they don't want you to realize how ridiculous that is, right? And because Hayek especially rejected all that initially, told Keynes, hey, if all this stuff happens and you guys get the central bank and you do all these kinds of things, you're not going to stop the boom and bust. You're actually going to create a huge credit bubble, which we actually saw in the 20s, the roaring 20s, which was the government was setting the rates of lending instead of the free market, and it allowed people to take on all these loans and do all this stuff and essentially created this massive, huge bubble, which was the Great Depression, right? That was, if you're an Austrian economist, you study that, you research that, and you believe that. The Friedman School of Thought has a lot of the Austrian economists. This is called the Chicago School of Economic Theory. They share a lot of the same beliefs as the Austrian school, except for the price of money, which is the Federal Reserve. So they say, we're going to have the Federal Reserve, we're going to set the interest rates, but everything else needs to be a free market. Just this one thing needs to be socialistically controlled, right? Like we don't have a board that sets the price of eggs or that sets the price of chickens or whatever, the price of a car, right? But for this one thing, the most important good of all of society that sends a signal to producers, sellers, buyers, business people, layman people, whatever. This idea of money itself, which is the most important good in all of society, right? Instead of allowing that price of money, the opportunity cost of lending, be a free market thing that could float, we need to have a board of people who set that rate, right? So it totally breaks the mold of if you really think about it from a fundamental standpoint, it just makes absolutely no sense and it's completely ridiculous. But that is so essential. It's so essential for the government to be able to essentially be able to print money and do what they do to fund wars and fund different things, that it's worked its way into the education system. It's worked its way into all public schools, all these things. I mean, it's just such a fundamental part that, we can't even entertain this economic theory over here that worked so well through most of the flourishing times in all of human history. It's kind of wild. Okay, let's see here.
Well put.
All right, so go to Jason Lowry's post here. He says, it was just kind of interesting. I love Jason Lowry has some great thoughts in the book Soft War, but here he has a lot of great takes that he posts. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. I really like this one. Bitcoin's difficulty adjustment counters Moore's law. It ensures the electro-computational cost of hashing remains high. No matter how fast and efficient our computers become, by increasing the hashing difficulty ad infinitum, Bitcoin ASICs chase an ever-receding horizon. No amount of ASIC efficiency will make the Bitcoin network use less energy. This high physical cost for producing Bitcoin or updating its ledger is a core feature, not a bug. We want it to be too physically expensive for any centralized entity to write the ledger. That is the primary mechanism of Bitcoin's decentralization. So when he says this idea of writing the ledger, that's like printing money, changing transactions, doing things. We don't want any central government. Nobody should have that power. It's like the separation of church and state. Well, it's a separation of money and state. And that's really what Bitcoin is, a 1776 moment of independence. That's literally what it is for money. It's like this, hey, you can't control this. This is a free good. You have no control. You can't manipulate. You can't do all the stuff that they historically have done, right? So that is the primary mechanism of Bitcoin's decentralization. The second order effects of this are also highly beneficial for humanity. Energy producers and chip makers are financially incentivized to find better, cheaper energy sources and more efficient computers to gain a temporary comparative advantage in hashing. The end result is more abundant energy, faster and more efficient computers, and more secure ledger. It's a win-win-win. So loved that take by Jason Lowry. All right, move us along to the next one, Paul. GameStop is clearly planning to, you don't even need to open that. GameStop is clearly planning to unload not only the $1.5 billion in financing, but now also a large portion of their $4.5 billion cash position into Bitcoin. I don't know what the exact number is, but I'm really fucking excited to find out. So GameStop is also becoming a Bitcoin treasury company.
Yeah.
They made their initial, big purchase, I think immediately, maybe a month ago or so that I heard. They bought a bunch of Bitcoin, I think around Bitcoin was down a bit, and now they're like, I think the CEO is like, he met with Michael Saylor and talked to him, and now he sees Bitcoin price going back up like pretty drastically over the past couple weeks. Since oh shit, we got another like $5 billion of just sitting on the sideline. Like we need to put this into Bitcoin so we don't just get continually printed and debased.
That's Ryan Cohen, right?
Yeah.
And what they're doing is pretty interesting. Changing like their infrastructures, using like brick and mortar shops as fulfillment centers, and diving more into like the e-commerce and online sales. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, Paul, take us to our next take here. Oh, did you guys see this yesterday? This was pretty cool. I think the Trump administration has, instead of just letting like the same corporate media people go ask questions and like basically just spew their bullshit constantly, their propaganda, he's allowing like private, smaller podcasters, et cetera, into the press room to ask different questions. So it's not all controlled by the same consortium blob that just rephrases and asks the same political gotcha questions over and over again against their political opponents. We can have those questions too, right? And like the press secretary can bat them down, respond, get whatever. But we're also going to have other, non-centralized parties, non-corporate media parties now asking questions that the people care about. So it was pretty cool to see him basically call out the entire media room, and they probably were not happy about it. So, and it was kind of like that freedom video we just watched where we made fun of the narratives and stuff. So I just thought it was cool to see that happen, where we've got now podcasters being able to ask questions, independent media being able to ask questions. I think it's really cool and good for America, healthy for America. What do you guys think?
I actually didn't see this at all, but it's really awesome. Getting more independent media into the room, I think is always a good idea, and it's kind of groundbreaking, honestly.
Yeah, it just seems like
from this administration to do that. I mean, you would hope that going forward, other administrations, both parties, would kind of try to adopt that, because that helps to keep the press in general honest. Like having independent thinkers and people who aren't a party to any kind of board or stock price that can kind of weigh in on opinions. I think it's huge.
I think it's where the future is moving to. Like that's what I mean. That's social media is the next and the future media.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, Paul, take us to the next take.
Our friend Michelle Weekly says, "Make truth great again."
Yeah, Michelle. Shout out to Michelle. She's awesome. All right, brother. Let's move on to the next take.
Dude, you're riffing too fast.
Dude, I got too much stuff to go. We got to get to the SEC stuff.
Give everything. Do it justice.
We did it justice. We hit the points. Let's move on.
I think we got to hit some of the critical counterpoints too. Some people think Timcast is an Israeli asset.
I don't think this has anything to do with the topic. Let's move along.
Oh, it sure does.
It doesn't. He asked a question that has nothing to do with that. As much as I want to spend an hour talking about Israel and Palestine, it has nothing to do with this. He asked a question. He insulted the corporate media.
I mean,
let's move to the next take.
I'm just saying, you got to hit all angles.
That has nothing to do with this take. Michael Saylor, soon every billionaire will buy $1 billion of Bitcoin, and the supply shock will be so great that we will stop measuring Bitcoin in terms of fiat. I mean, no surprise here by the big Mike. I mean, he's pretty much all in here. So just another further take on what he was saying earlier. All right.
Redefining value.
Where did you see that?
No, I'm just saying that's what's happening. Value is being redefined. It's not it's not only a monetary point of view. It's like value is different now. Value is our time, your time. What we do with the time, what we build with our time. Like that's the new form of value. And I think Bitcoin kind of wraps that all up in a nice little package.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, let's move on to the next take.
Not until we touch on butthole connoisseurs comments. This is why it's important, Maddie.
Butthole connoisseur. Got to give him some respect for that name. Oh, man. Imagine being somebody where your name is Butthole Connoisseur and you say, this guy's an idiot.
We welcome all takes.
All takes. He's taking it somewhere, that's for sure. This is a big one, and I think we can spend some time unpacking this. Modi, the I think is he the president or what do they call the leader of India? Is he the
Premier?
the premier? I think it's a special name of how they call it.
God.
Yeah, he's the
Something or other.
he's the dictator. He's in charge. He's the man in charge, right? So he's pleased to welcome U.S. VP J.D. Vance and his family in New Delhi. We reviewed the fast-paced progress following my visit to the U.S. and meeting with President Trump. We are committed to mutually beneficial cooperation, including in trade, technology, defense, energy, and people-to-people exchanges. India-U.S. Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership will be a defining partnership of the 21st century for a better future of our people and the world. Wow, I think this is a big domino to fall. I think this is a big important step for trade relations and all this tariff stuff that's happening in the world. I guess Vance's wife is Indian, and he's got Indian baby. They have Indian babies, so I think that was like, hey, like we really do want to cooperate with you. We, we understand your culture. I think they came in some of their cultural dress as well, which she is. I think his wife is like has a rich cultural history, right? But has blended to America. She's obviously the first. I don't know what they call the first vice presidential lady. I don't know what that's called, but
Second lady.
yeah, she's second lady. I guess the second lady. Yeah. But huge domino to fall here, and I think they made. I think I read that they came to terms on some actual trade deals. Like I think it's like. I also read today that they put 12% tariffs on China. India just did.
Did they really?
So I think they put 12% tariffs on their steel. So I think there's.
It definitely seems like a good counterbalance
yeah.
to China.
And
Honestly,
China
keeps
was
them honest.
yeah, and China was threatening any countries that make deals. Who the fuck does China think they are? China out of their fucking minds. We're gonna retaliate against any countries that make trade deals with the United States. How about you go fuck yourself, China? Are you out of your fucking mind? We're not. Other countries can go make whatever deals they want with you. You don't have a right to tell any countries to fucking not make deals with the U.S. So, I think this is a good thing, right? I think this is. I think it's a big deal too. I mean, really big deal because India is a huge counterbalance, like you said, player over in that region, and they're one of the largest, fastest growing countries in the entire world, right? So, historically, they've been kind of that neutral player, aligned with BRICS, even like on some stuff. Those BRICS countries, but I think. This is kind of like turning around and putting 12%, tariffs on Chinese steel the day after this. Like, if that's actually a true story, this is a big deal. Like, this is a bigger deal than people think.
I think India has the potential to be like one of the powerhouses in the world.
I agree with you completely.
It's such a under or overlooked country. Like they have the ability to move the needle like in big ways in so many different sectors.
I think so. I think you're right. All right. Let's see here.
So people were saying J.D. Vance was with the Pope, the day before he passed.
China is really upset about this. They should be. China needs India far more than India needs China. Interesting. Somebody says a symphony. Go up, read the post above. It's a symphony of what? A symphony of diplomacy and unity. PM Modi's gracious reception of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and his family in New Delhi heralds a new chapter of India-U.S. collaboration, illuminating the global stage with hope and harmony. So. That's a pretty big domino to fall if that's the first one, because you'd think that would be that like a BRICS leaning country wouldn't want to closely, lean towards the U.S.'s side on this whole trade deal stuff.
They're the I in BRICS, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Brazil, Russia,
yeah,
India,
they're a major part of BRICS. Yeah, which is historically countries that are kind of like, not necessarily anti-American, but kind of like, hey, there's this other world order, and we don't need to necessarily do what you want, right? So. Interesting thoughts here. Interesting stuff happening.
I think the SEC's new point of view on crypto might have some sort of an influence.
I'm going to, I think I tagged, that's why I definitely want to make sure we get to that. And I think we will if we just keep moving here. Let's go to the next take, Paul. So this one's wild. This one blew my mind, right? So of course these guys like this WEF, like, they can't help themselves. Have you seen the new supervillain who's in charge now?
Why do they all have to look like supervillains?
I don't understand. It's insane. Like this guy
they're
literally
all James Bond.
So now all of a
villains.
sudden this guy go up a little bit. Now all of a sudden this guy, this Klaus Schwab guy, they're going after him for alleged financial and ethical misconduct. Like you think so? Like we would have never guessed that one. What a shocker. What a surprise. I mean, like just crazy, absolutely crazy. And then the next guy they got
own nothing and be happy.
There would be nothing. You eat crickets, motherfucker. Eat crickets. Did you see the other fucking?
Yeah, he's got like a red eye.
Yeah,
he's
dude, he looks like
an actual Bond villain.
Yeah, he looks like a straight up fucking villain.
It's insane.
Yeah, and I guess he said like people. He had something about water. Like people were like, you better pay for the water. You damn peasants. You're not entitled to water.
Water isn't a what
it's not like like a human right.
It's on a yeah.
But
You
that
have no
was,
right to water. You better pay me, Nestle. You
I
better
did-
pay me for this water bottles.
I looked into it a bit, and he essentially was a bit misquoted. He said
He kind of
something about-
walked it back afterwards, but
Well,
I think
yeah,
at that
he was
point it was
like-
like, oh fuck, I said something absolutely crazy. Now people can't know how crazy I am.
But then a woman at the WEF, like some higher up, said shortly, like I don't know if it was that same day, but she mentioned how essentially that this global warming epidemic campaign hasn't been effective. So you're saying that a water shortage really would be a lot more effective in essentially rolling out these new regulations. So that's sinister, right? If you're not getting your way because of all this fear mongering, and then you really actually start restricting water, that is some globalist Marxist, evil shit that we never voted for. But that guy with his Terminator eye, I think that was like a photo they took. He doesn't always look like that.
Sometimes he puts in the regular eye. He doesn't have the Terminator eye in. I don't know, but it looked wild.
It's a wild take if that is
Yeah.
the actual photo that like the WF decided to go with. They were like, they pushed that one out. And they were like, this is our new head.
Oh my god, we got Decepticon. I mean, what's his name? He's the new head of the WEF. All right.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is. Oh my goodness. I better get his minion too.
There's
Oh
the
my God.
Soros, the true villain.
There's the go up a little bit. I want to see the one with his eye again. That was classic. So what he said, humans have no right to access free water. Oh my goodness. So what? That wasn't normally how his eye is. They just did that to make it look like
Well,
it.
no, he had some issue at one point,
Oh, okay.
but he doesn't. He usually looks like
The
this.
shitty pants photo. Oh my goodness, that's classic. All right, let's take us to the next post. I want to get to this SEC stuff eventually. Let's see here. Oh, this is interesting. So a lot of people who are unsure about what's happening in elections, myself included. I mean, I'm very suspicious of everything that's been happening. But here, Scott Pressler says, since 2020, 1 million people have left California for other states. In California, every voter receives a mail-in ballot for every election. However, in order to be removed from the voter rolls, you have to mail a voter registration cancellation form to your former county elections office. So how many of these 1 million people do you think mailed in a cancellation form? So hundreds of thousands of voters that no longer live in California could still be receiving ballots at their old addresses in a state that allows for ballot harvesting. To make matters worse, I want you to look at the Los Angeles County cancellation form. On the government form, which is listed directly on the website, under reason for cancellation, it says non-citizen. Yes, the very form that allows for California voters to cancel their voter registration is acknowledging that one reason is being an illegal alien. Therefore, illegal aliens are on the voter rolls. If you have moved out of California recently, I implore you to mail a voter registration cancellation form to your previous county election office right now. I also encourage you to check your California voter registration status to see if you're still registered to vote. And to really drive this point home, where my first thought was like, why the fuck do we care? We know California is a fucking, liberal hellhole, like a Democratic hellhole. They've essentially, it's always blue no matter what. But if you go up here and look, oh, thanks, brother. Appreciate that. If you go up a little bit, Paul, if you scroll back up, you can actually see that there was multiple elections and precincts that were decided by literally hundreds of votes. So, all they got to do is stuff the ballot box with, 5, 6, 7, 800 illegal votes, or they just show up to people's houses. It's very easy to see who's moved recently and look up, information. They have access to the voter lists or whatever, and you just hit all those spots. And the ballot harvesters probably do this every single election cycle. They know where people aren't living. They know which apartment buildings and houses get a bunch of fucking, undelivered mail that sits stuffed in boxes, and they just go scoop all that up, fill it out, and send it in. And we know this is happening. So, it is important, especially in these really close elections. So, an interesting thing. And to me, it's absolutely fucking insane that could be on, like, that they just send out all these ballots willy-nilly, no matter what. You didn't ask for it, they just fucking send it out. I mean, it's fucking cheating is what it is. It's total fraud, and then the fact that an illegal alien, someone who's not a citizen, could actually be on the rolls, is just total, it's like treason. And like, to me, it's like literal treason. That's the way I think about it.
It's 2025. If they wanted the problem fixed, they could fix the problem.
No doubt.
It
2
benefits
seconds.
the powers that be.
No doubt.
And that's the reason why
No
our
doubt.
voting is just such a shit show every 4 years. But
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, this is a great take. Eric Trump on CNBC says Bitcoin and crypto are reinventing a financial system that is antiquated. I'm all in. I believe in this with every part of my heart and soul. Please play this video that Pete Rizzo posted. It is so good. And I know exactly how he feels. You know, after having my company bank accounts shut down because I'm involved in the space that the powers that be don't like, or a business they don't like, even though it's completely legal. So what he's experienced, I mean, this is why Bitcoin was created. This is why we have these financial systems that can't be controlled by governments, corrupt officials, corrupt administrations, etc. It's a system that is decentralized and operates without centralized interference and control, and allows people to truly have private property rights in the digital age on the internet. So why don't you play this?
In the White House, managing perceived conflicts of interest.
Well, there are no conflicts because I don't work with the White House. I've been in private industry my entire life, and we started World Liberty long before my father ever got elected to the White House, right? I mean, this is something we believed in crypto for a very long time. We believed in DeFi. As I said, you know, before we got cut off, before our audio got cut off, I mean, we saw the worst of the banking institutions, the financial institutions, as they tried to cancel, and not only myself, my family, our companies, in every way, shape, and form. And unfortunately, people around the world are seeing that every single day. And when you look at DeFi and the power of that, I mean, it's really restoring the power back to the people. There's nothing that DeFi, there's nothing that cryptocurrency on blockchain can't do better, cheaper, you know, in every way, faster, more transparently than the financial system that we have right now. Guys, as I sit here in our organization, I mean, there's not a Friday that goes by where I'm not chasing a swift wire transfer, hoping it comes in on, you know, before the 4 p.m. deadline, or trying to send one out. You know, you can transfer millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin overseas,
Yep.
you know, while having a glass of wine with your wife at 11 o'clock at night. That's a beautiful thing. Our financial system in this country is antiquated. Our financial system in this country has been punitive to so many different people. And so we're reinventing the financial system, and, you know, American Bitcoin is a big part of that. HUD 8, using their power and their data centers, is a big part of that. And obviously, World Liberty in terms of, you know, stablecoin, which, by the way, is going to bring tremendous wealth into the United States, as well as DeFi is a large part of that. I'm all in personally. I really, truly believe in this with every part of my heart and soul.
I love that. That was so powerful. I think he just hits the nail on the head on so many different issues. You know, we can send information across the world. I can send a text message to somebody on the other side of the earth, and they would receive that message instantly. Why can't we do the same thing for money? Right. We can. I mean, the reason that we don't is because there's all these other vested third-party interests that are involved in all this, that are creating all this friction, all this, you know, spying and stuff that's happening, and deplatforming, debanking, all these different entities that be, which, you know, we don't need you. You know, get the fuck out of the way. Let people transact. Freer commerce, more efficient finance creates a better world, a fairer world, a more efficient world, right? Where resources can be reallocated to areas that really need them more. And it won't stop the flow of commerce. I mean, you know how much time like, he's talking about these swift wire transfers. I waste so much fucking time on the phone with banks, like wiring money, sending stuff. I mean, it's literally insane. Like, I have to sit on the phone for 30 minutes to do a wire. They ask me, do you know your name, sir? Did somebody send you a text message and tell you to wire? Listen to this 15-minute conversation that I have to read you to make sure you're not fucking retarded. Like, I'm like, listen, I don't want to listen to this. I'm a fucking adult. I'm a grown human being. Nobody told me to do this. I'm sorry, sir. I got to read this to you, or you can't send it's insane, right? Like, get out of my way.
I don't have a lot of experience with big business wire transfers, but do they do that every time that you
only
try to...
It depends on the institution, but I have a couple institutions that do, and it's a pain in the fucking ass. And I'm like, hey, I don't need to hear this. let me just sign a waiver that says, like, I'm a grown adult and I accept responsibility for my own fucking actions. Where are you sending the money, sir? Why are you sending the money? None of your fucking business. Oh, I'm sorry if you don't tell me. I can't let you send the wire. Fuck you, right? Like, it's insane.
How specific of a reason do you have to give them?
Hey, why are you sending this wire? Because I want to. For what purpose? Like, they'll question you and press you. Is this it for business? Oh, is this are you buying something? What is it? You know, like, it is, like, very specific, like, because that's the way that the government is probably trying to regulate every little detail and overstaying what they really should be involved with, right? Like, so, but like, a lot of it is like, hey, I got to read you this fucking 5-minute disclaimer, and just to make sure you don't have fraud because you can't reverse a wire. It's like, okay, I accept that. Let me just check a box, take responsibility, and if shit happens, like, I'll deal with it. No, you got to do this. And it's some institutions, like, it's so fucking annoying, you know, and this wire's over $10,000. We need to get approval from a manager. Like these little different things, right? So it is super annoying. It's a huge pain in the ass. So I see his pain, and then also to deal with the debanking, right? Like, oh, you're in a prohibited industry. That's my favorite one. That's what it was. This is a prohibited industry. If you're in crypto, like I kept hearing that from all these different institutions that were totally unrelated. It's like, this isn't private banks coming up with this. They're all saying the same thing. This is like government actively doing this. So like, it was so obvious to me when all the choke point data came out about targeting the Web3 crypto industry. I was like, of course, I already know this. Like,
is that still going on? Like, do you still run across that? Or?
Well, I actually ran across this the other day. I thought it was all over and done with. We're still kind of like seeing, I mean, it's going to take some time for more stuff to come out. I mean, with the SEC stuff coming out recently, but also like even in like the SBA, Small Business Administration, like the head of the SBA says, hey, we're going to work with a crypto company now. So it goes on public television and says that, but that message hasn't percolated down to the underlings, the people that are involved. Same thing with banking. I've had this company, I think it's actually a forward-leaning company. Mercury is like supposed to be like a fintech kind of like startup company. They kept like messaging me, harassing me, like trying to get my business, trying to get me an open account. And then like when I opened the account and was said like, yeah, we do cryptocurrency mining and stuff, they're like, oh, you're in a prohibited industry. I'm like, it's 2025 now. We have a new administration. Like, this is crazy. Like, why did you not like look at, like, go to my website and like do all this stuff after sending me all these emails and constant correspondence, like before you did this, like to know what the fuck we're doing? Like, it's just so silly. So silly. So silly. So yeah, I mean, I guess there is still remnants of this. This is still happening despite what people think, like that it's all over now. No, it's still kind of fucking happening. Like, really, really shitty.
When the next generations, like the younger generations now grow up and we have to explain this whole nostro-vostro system, how money was transferred, where it goes through all the hands of, it's going to be really interesting, like to hear their take. Like, you guys had to do what to send where?
Yeah.
And with who?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be interesting,
yeah.
New thought, some new thought for the next, but
no doubt. All right, let's move along to the next take here, Paul. You don't have to click into it, but I'm just going to touch on it really briefly. British PM Keir Starmer reportedly no longer believes transgender women are women after Supreme Court ruling. Like, what kind of fucking cop-out is that? Like, you just because the Supreme Court now says this, you don't believe it anymore? No, that's like your little political escape hatch to be like, nope, see, they said it, not me. I know what I was doing was completely crazy. So kind of wild. And right underneath that, we got Trump admin has been mulling ways to get more Americans married and having kids, including a $5,000 baby bonus for every new mom after delivery, according to a report. I think that's fucking awesome. If you're a government and you're looking at your population declining and you need more people to, support the economy or whatever, like American citizens, you don't want to import all these, gang members and people. Like, this is the plan to increase the population. Provide incentives. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome, right?
Incentives for families and growing families should be that should be a massive priority for the government.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think that's a big reason why people don't have children. Like, certain people don't have children is because they can't afford it.
Yeah,
it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. No doubt. You know that. We both know that. Jack Mallers to lead Tether, SoftBank, and Cantor Fitzgerald-backed Bitcoin treasury company. 21 Capital will launch with 42,000 Bitcoin in assets. We're winning. Another company that's adding Bitcoin as a treasury reserve, right? Like, the supply is limited. It is a hard cap 21 million supply. So what we're seeing here is like with nation states and huge companies, like there is coming a point very soon, I feel like you can just kind of like feel it, where like there is going to be an extreme supply shock. Like, and the price only goes one way when that happens, right? When we're seeing demand slowly and steadily increase on a absolutely scarce asset. And, eventually when all of the supply is drained, like when the demand comes in, price goes up. I mean, this is historically what's happened where you've seen these exponential moves in Bitcoin's price, is because, it is one of the only absolutely scarce assets in the world that will allow you to not get debased, not get diluted, and protect your purchasing power over time, right? In the short term, there's a lot of volatility still because it's, a new asset still, even at almost like $1 to $2 trillion, like it's still technically a new asset, only a decade or two old. But very quickly, I think it just passed, I want to say like Google and market cap the other day. So we're like top 5 asset in the world already, which is hard to believe, right? So
once the U.S. buys, all the other countries are going to follow suit because they're going to have to do,
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So that's going to run it up.
Daniel Prince says we are being co-opted. This is not winning. Yeah, I don't think so, Daniel. I think Bitcoin is for everybody, and as we've talked about for so long, just owning Bitcoin gives you no control over the network itself. All it does is it gives you property rights and basically the rights to not be debased. But you don't essentially have to. You can't control the system with more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a proof of stake system; it's a proof of work system. So the control remains with the miners who provide the security and are financially incentivized to do so. So yeah, I think this is a big nothing burger. That's not co-opted at all. Bitcoin, your enemies are going to have Bitcoin. Your friends are going to have Bitcoin. Big companies are going to have Bitcoin. Little companies are going to have Bitcoin. States are going to have Bitcoin. Everyone's going to have Bitcoin. So there's my take.
Well said.
Let's move along. Let's see here. Yeah. Harvard is suing the administration. We'll talk a little bit about Harvard. I mean, they're out of their fucking minds, but we'll talk about them. Harvard is suing the administration for withholding federal tax dollars. Here's a list of civil rights violations Harvard is guilty of. SCOTUS found that Harvard's race-based admissions policies violated the Equal Protection Clause in the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Number 2, in July 2023, civil rights groups filed a complaint alleging that Harvard's preference for legacy and donor-related applicants, so preferential treatment. Number 1 is, straight up racism, like giving you something based on your race. Like, it shouldn't have been done 70 years ago when people were being discriminated against, and it should not be done now the other way around to compensate for that. It's what happened 70 years ago. No, it should be completely merit-based. We shouldn't consider people's, non-controllable physical characteristics, skin color, whatever it may be. It should never be a criteria in any fucking thing, right? Merit, talent, that's it, right? That's it. And that's what that's literally what the law says, right? So all the affirmative action, all this stuff was literally institutionalized racism, right? We put up with it for a long time. I always thought it was morally wrong and reprehensible, either against or for. We're in 2025. We're moving on. It's time to turn the page. Forget all this bullshit. It's gone. And then the second thing was preferential treatment. Paul, can you go back to the insurrection Barbie take? So let's see. Yeah, so giving preference to legacy and donors, people giving money. I mean, that's, if the government is providing free grant money, no, we can't be giving preference to legacy and people that are giving private donors and stuff. That's ridiculous. Number 3, in January 2024, Jewish students filed a lawsuit claiming Harvard allowed a hostile environment for Jewish students, particularly after the October 7 Hamas attack. The lawsuit alleges harassment, intimidation, and the university's failure to act. So, number 3, freedom of speech is important, right? That being said, there is a line crossed when you are preventing kids from going to class. You're physically, harming people. You're taking over buildings. You're doing all that shit. That would never be allowed. It wouldn't be allowed to have Nazis parading around campus. It would instantly be probably attacked. Even though I think free speech is important, right? So we can draw the line that free speech, free protest, free words, even if you don't like it, can be said. But there is a line that they crossed, and we literally showed videos of it here on a couple episodes of them literally damaging property, taking over buildings, busting windows, busting down doors, screaming, harassing people.
Why is there this, tolerance for that kind of behavior?
It
Why
just
do you think that exists?
Yeah,
it's
just
one of
shouldn't.
the most reprehensible, disgusting. He sees people do these things. And
Yeah.
Why are we tolerating this?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, people do have their First Amendment rights, so there's a level of free speech that exists, right? It is their First Amendment. But that doesn't give you the right to take over buildings and violently attack people and fucking destroy property and do all this crazy shit, right? There's a limitation on that, right? So that line was clearly crossed. All right, let's go back to the next.
But it's also because we're systematically being, I think, there's this underlying subliminal messaging that if you do speak up, somehow you're all these things, right? They categorize you as a radical alt-right racist or whatever. If you speak up against any of this insanity that's going on, all these open society, George Soros things, it's strategically being done that way, where if you have any sort of criticism at all, you're bunched in with the worst automatically, even though they're not going to negotiate, they're not going to argue your points, they're just going to label you and try to character assassinate you.
Yeah. I mean, again, I draw the line at physically taking over buildings and doing all that crazy shit, damaging property, literally not letting kids go to class by blocking them. That's not free speech. That's that's violence.
I think that falls into the mental health sector
Yeah.
of like what's happening, because that's not right. You
Yeah.
you got to have some sort of common sense to not hurt people or not, to do things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are dangerous.
Right. But instead, those people are now being bought new homes and getting GoFundMe campaigns.
All right, Paul, can you go back to the insurrection Barbie take? I think there was a couple more things I wanted to touch on.
You
So
love Insurrection Barbie.
number 4. No, I just want to read the whole post of all the stuff I tag. In April 2025, House Republicans launched an investigation into Harvard's compliance with civil rights laws, focusing on its handling of anti-Semitism, DEI policies, and student protests. Number 5, the HHS is investigating Harvard's compliance with Title VI and Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, focusing on allegations of anti-Semitism and discrimination based on race and national origin. You can't violate civil rights law and get federal funding. The New York Times is actively cheering on these civil rights violations. I think when I did a little research on this, there was another institution that I think was like maybe 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe like 60 or 70 years ago that was outrightly like just completely racist. Like they got federal funding, and like they were just they didn't allow like interracial like relationships or something like that on school campus or pub PDA. It was something that was completely in violation of the Civil Rights Act or whatever it was. And eventually what ended up happening was the federal funding got revoked because they were violating civil rights laws, right? They're like, you got to have private funding. You want to do what the fuck you want, but you're not going to get federal government grant money if you're doing this type of shit. In the same way that, discriminating against people as part of admissions criteria and all these ways, no, you're not going to get federal funds, and this shit needs to stop if you want federal money. So I'd love to.
It's an
love to
interesting
see
thing with Harvard, though. I mean, like they're a private institution, right? They're
a corporation. They're Harvard Corporation.
Have more money than
have,
God.
They have like 50 plus billion.
Their endowment is insane. So
they're making money. That's the whole point. I mean, it's a for-profit business. It's literally a for-profit business.
Yeah,
why are they getting taxpayer money?
Yeah, exactly. Why,
it's ridiculous.
Why is our money going to Harvard?
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
They have so much
ridiculous. Money. Yeah, it's insane. It's fucking insane. They can go fuck themselves. That's how I think about it.
I mean, like I said, they're a private institution. They can kind of do what they want
you
within
do
the
all
letter of
this
the law,
crazy
but they should not be
shit.
taking taxpayer dollars to do it. That's for sure.
What do you think, Jeff?
Pay more? No.
All right, Paul. Take us to the next take. Oh, this is one of my favorite stories. I mean, it doesn't surprise you at all, but Soros-backed DA refuses to prosecute. You got to scroll up a little bit. Refuses to prosecute Democrat aide to Governor Tim Walz for vandalizing 6 Teslas, causing more than $20,000 in damages. Democrats are sending the message that it is open season on Tesla, Elon, and Trump. The DOJ should revisit this as a hate crime and prosecute him federally. If we let Soros DAs let these guys walk, things will only get worse. I disagree about. I think the whole idea of a hate crime is ridiculous. If you commit a crime, like the judge should evaluate in your sentencing how remorseful you are, what your intentions were. That should be like just part of your sentencing guidelines. Like that's where you come in and decide. Hey, is this person remorseful or are they not? But like, crime shouldn't be different based on your race or your intention. Or, you know what I mean? Like it's if you commit murder, you commit murder. If you commit vandalism, you commit vandalism. That's the way I think about it. The law should just be completely, it should all be treated the same. That's my personal opinion. But this is what I was talking about earlier when I talk about, when it's the difference between the modern right and the modern left. If somebody did this in Florida to a Republican, say it was a Republican who did this to, I don't know, say George Soros, say somebody left-leaning had a car company that was like, I'm trying to think, like Reid Hoffman, he's got LinkedIn, right? So like, imagine if LinkedIn had a headquarters in Miami and somebody went there and fucking vandalized it all and fucking scratched it up and broke windows. Do you think the police and the Pam Bondi and the right-leaning people in Florida would even though it was against their political, you think they would let that slide in Florida? Let me tell you something. Fuck no. They would be prosecuted. They're going to jail. Even though it's against Reid Hoffman, who's a political opponent or whatever. This is the type of fucking crazy shit that I'm talking about on the left when I say this fucking DA was literally installed by George Soros, funded by George Soros, and now is literally not prosecuting somebody who vandalized like 6 or 7 vehicles because they're on, like, if that was a Republican, you better believe that person would be getting vandalized. This is what I mean when it's rules for thee but not for me. It's like this whole idea, this whole double standard. I think this is just the epitome of that. Mary Moriarty, shame on you. So if this story is true, which I have no reason to believe it's not, shame on you, Mary Moriarty. I hope she gets totally fucking removed from office. Let's hear. Oh, let's look at this. District Attorney Mary Moriarty really cares that people who break the law face consequences. Well, only if they support Trump. Actions have consequences, Mary. Mary says, mostly for poor people. Certainly not for anyone certainly not for anyone affiliated with Trump. So no, they really don't. So here she is publicly, literally saying If you support Trump, I'm not going to prosecute you. Out of curiosity, what does Trump have to do with my comment? I took your original comment to mean that if you don't pay your fines, you lose your license consequences. Although if you have money to pay, you pay. I started to think about all of the people pardoned by Trump and others near him who have broken the law with no consequences. So this is an example of literally how corrupt her thinking is and essentially what she's doing. Totally crazy.
Here, someone said, apparently no consequences for like J6 protesters means spending 3+ years in solitary confinement before even going to trial. Pretty harsh for no consequences.
Yeah, she's saying, "Oh yeah, Trump pardoned all these people. Yeah, after they served fucking 4 years in prison for vandalism for property crime. You know, like yeah, I think those are some pretty serious consequences. You know, this is just crazy. I mean, this is the corruption you're dealing with, the total bullshit. Here's another one that I love. So people think, oh, the judiciary is so independent. They're just doing their court cases. They're not, whatever. Meanwhile, in New Mexico, a judge suddenly resigns after ICE arrests an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member in his own home. What a bizarre story. Law enforcement executed a search on Magistrate Judge Joel Cano's home before arresting 23-year-old Cristina Ortega Lopez, who had ties to the Tren de Aragua gang. According to Breitbart, authorities recovered photos on Ortega Lopez's phone of decapitated and mutilated bodies. Ortega Lopez illegally entered the country under President Joe Biden through Eagle Pass, Texas. He was released from a detention facility just days after entering the country due to overcrowding. He soon met the judge's wife, Nancy Cano, and started doing construction work. Cano then invited the illegal to live at their house. Judge Cano was seen in multiple photos and videos with the alleged gang member, including one where the illegal is handing him a gun. I mean, you can't even fucking make this shit up. I mean, this is absolutely insane. So, like, you better believe along all these border cities, you better believe the cartel owns tons of these fucking judges that are all sitting down there in Arizona, in New Mexico, in all these little areas, right? I mean, like, this is what we're dealing with here. So, no, you're not getting independent, judicial work. You're getting literal activists who are in power, that have power in these different areas. I mean, this is insane. Like, this judge literally has a fucking gang member living with them. I mean, like, crazy. I don't know, what the terms are. Maybe he threatened him from the cartel. Who knows? I don't know, but it's just crazy. The gun on me, it's just wild. Wild. All right, let's move along. Unless you guys want to chime in on this. What do you think, Ethan? Have you heard this story yet?
I've never heard that story. It's pretty
Kinda
wild.
yeah.
Wild if true.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It definitely happened. It definitely happened. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't.
You don't think anything? It's just crazy. It doesn't surprise you.
It doesn't surprise me. It's like, who said the cartel has people in places?
I said that.
Of course.
I mean,
yeah.
Haven't you watched Ozark?
No, should I?
Haven't you watched the Ozarks? Yeah, it's a great show on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Coin Bureau. Breaking. The European Central Bank warns Trump pro-crypto stance could trigger financial contagion that may destabilize Europe's economy, according to Politico. The ECB fears that a surge in U.S.-backed stablecoins could lead to a flight of European capital into the U.S. That's a wild one. What do you guys think?
So say that one more time. The
So
European Central Bank.
The ECB, yeah. They're basically saying that Trump's pro-crypto stance could destabilize Europe's economy, according to
Of course.
Politico.
Isn't that the whole point of Bitcoin and crypto? Is to,
I think, yeah.
Well, not the whole point.
I mean, it's to offer an alternate means of settlement and to offer people different options, but also to make finance and economies more efficient. So I don't really see how it could destroy their economy and destabilize their economy if they have an actual fucking economy, right? Like, all it does is offer people tools to have different options for money, right?
They want us to use the 3 to 5 business day money transfer.
They want you to use that. They want you to use the euro and the dollar so they can keep printing it and stealing from people in addition to just
and making money off of it.
Additional, crazy tax rates. It's too funny. Look at this meme. Bitcoin is too volatile. Bitcoin cannot be a currency. Our job is to maintain value of currency. It just shows the currency going down. All right.
Again, I think it's changing the way we see what value is, and we're getting away from this whole fiat form of value that was created.
We talked about that one already, Paul. You don't need to open that one. Breaking. Oh, go up there. I think that was the take. It says India says it will increase imports from the U.S. rather than China.
It's a big
country. Yeah, I saw that, and I saw the steel thing. So that's pretty big news. Mike Ben's here. Let's see. There are certain. and we were just getting, so here Joe Rogan had, yeah, why don't you, it's 5 minute long. So basically he said there are certain groups that are encouraging and funding public chaos. All this stuff is real. That's why it's crazy having a guy like Mike Benz lay it all out. People think it's organic. This is what I'm talking about the left coordinating with through Soros stuff, these NGOs, these different things, paying these violent, acts of vandalism, burning Teslas, destroying dealerships, keying people's cars, doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, this is not an organic thing, right? Like this is a well-funded, violent, leftist operation that's occurring here.
I'd like to see those people that are keying cars on a podcast and like questioned, like, what was going through your mind when you were doing this? Like,
This is crazy.
Why?
Just absolutely crazy.
Who sent you?
I think we might be getting into. I think we might be getting into some posts we talked about last time, Paul. How far down did you go?
17th.
17th. Yeah, I think those might be from last Friday. I think we talked about some of this stuff.
I do have some other current events. Efrat Fenningson had a post I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, pull it up.
Our friend, by the way, we're going to be speaking with her soon.
What does she got here?
So she posted something about apparently there's an attempt here to dim the sunlight. So it's most likely another Bill Gates, attempt to take over the world.
So what is this where they're releasing some of these like toxic? So people talking about these jet trails. I always thought these people were crazy, but chemtrails or whatever. I always thought these people were nuts, but apparently like there's something in the thing they're releasing, like titanium or something that reflects the sunlight. I was reading something that goes into like the atmosphere and like it reflects sunlight. Did you hear about like the funniest thing to me that made me laugh was that we were there was like ships always had this poison that they had in like the gas or whatever, but what this poison did was it would float on the top of the water and it would actually reflect the sunlight. So when the governments around the world like made all these regulations to, like stop polluting the oceans, and then what happened was it actually, when they stopped doing it, they said global warming was getting worse because now it wasn't reflecting the sunlight anymore because they took the toxins out of the water or out of the fuel or whatever. You never heard about that? That's pretty funny. Yeah. No, there's a whole story. There's a whole that's like legit. There's a whole thing about it. So I guess there was some chemical in gasoline or whatever, and as you took these huge boats across the ocean, it was like going a little bit into the water, but it was actually reflecting sunlight. So it was keeping the earth cooler, essentially. Huh. And then they banned it. And then now the earth, like people are like freaking out, like, why is everything getting warmer? Well, it's because you stopped polluting the oceans.
So it was sulfur emissions. Apparently the chemical was these sulfur, like high sulfur fuel oils that would essentially contribute to these aerosols in the atmosphere somehow, but this ban apparently decreased the cloud formation and reflectivity that this sulfur had, and some studies are saying that this led to an increase in temperature, which meant it led to an increase in potential hurricanes and that kind of thing. So there's always like these unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, there's all these effects that you really can't control everything because like there's just all these other levers. Like you do one thing, 5 other things related to it happen. And it's like hard to really know what all the effects are. So this is why like this is very concerning because what happens when you pump all this stuff, you go up there and you put all these different chemicals into the jet streams and stuff, and they start reflecting the sunlight. But then all of a sudden, we got a nuclear winter or something.
Yeah,
maybe it just rains down.
Alone, maybe.
Yeah, I think we might need to like do a little more research and public discourse on this issue before we just start pumping a bunch of titanium dioxides or whatever into the atmosphere. I don't know, just saying. I mean, a lot of these experiments just haven't been going really well. Fauci and their little gain of function experiments over in Wuhan wasn't going too well. So I think we might need to pump the brakes on some of this stuff.
How wild is it that we've had multiple mainstream news sources now come out and say, "Oh, it's definitely from a lab."
Yeah, I mean,
and now like it's.
But it was all before. It was all a conspiracy.
Completely, it was just kind of like snuck in there, and everyone's kind of moved past it. And,
So it wasn't bats.
Wasn't bats. Pangolins.
Paul, can you do me a favor? Can you go back to the stories? I want to find the one about one of the tags was about the Paul Atkins, what his comments were. He's the new SEC chair. Just scroll down. I know it's on there.
So
There it is right there. Yeah. 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 There we go. Yeah, I want to watch this and react to it because I think this is a bigger deal than people think it is. So this is Paul Atkins. He's the new SEC chair, just sworn in, and I think his statements couldn't be more fundamentally bullish to the crypto Web3 Bitcoin industry. Wild.
Affirm our securities laws and regulations are applied and advance clear rules of the road that encourage investment in our economy to the benefit of Americans. A top priority of my chairmanship will be to provide a firm regulatory foundation for digital assets through a rational, coherent, and principled approach. We will work to ensure that the United States is the best and most secure place in the world to invest and to do business. So, Mr. President, again, thank you very much for your graciousness in extending such a warm welcome to my family and me today in this storied room. I look forward to working with you, with colleagues in your administration, and with Congress to advance your agenda to bolster the economy and build on U.S. leadership of the global markets. So thank you very much. Our securities laws.
Wow. I think it's a pretty big deal. What do you guys think?
I love it.
I love it too,
It's-
man. After the past 4 years of fucking the terror that we've had, I mean, this is like a breath of fresh air.
Right, and it's gonna allow companies to start building confidently again.
Yes.
And not only
Yeah.
that, but the digital economy, and it's just it's the new era of
It's
something.
a bullish sign for builders that, hey, it's safe to build now. Like we're gonna have some guidelines, rules of the road,
Right.
and like we're not gonna come after and shut your company down, close your bank accounts, and attack you personally, and ruin your life, which is what's been happening, right?
And he also
So-
mentioned something along the lines like not allowing politics to dictate what
Mhm.
the SEC is there for, where when the SEC is specifically there for the safety and
To not get involved, right? Yeah, it's like
Right.
crazy.
and allow the free market
Yeah.
to work as it's intended to.
Mhm.
Quick reminder to like and retweet if you like what you're hearing and like what you're getting. Maddie's focused on bringing you analysis, so I'm handling the engagement requests. If you want to help a brother out, hit that retweet. Helps with the algorithm.
Paul's gunning for that raise. I love it. I love to see it. Give a follow to the channels to give Paul a raise. Oh my goodness. This was interesting. So we're hearing all this news about the dollar this, the dollar that, but as of today, it looks like the U.S. dollar is now used in nearly 50% of global payments, the highest level in more than 12 years. So while everyone's kind of saying like, oh, people are kind of like fleeing the dollar and this, that, and the other, it seems like the amount of payments in the dollar is actually going up, which is kind of surprising, kind of interesting. So just like an interesting counterfactual to everything we've been reading and seeing.
Do you think that is largely correlated to the fact that Trump won?
I'm not sure, because right now with all the tariffs and the uncertainty behind all these potential trade wars, a lot of people are getting scared and actually fleeing the dollar. Like that was the whole argument of like people selling U.S. bonds and kind of being frightened by the dollar, and the dollar has weakened after that. But now it seems like the evidence is actually showing if this can be accurately proven. Is there any charts or anything like that?
Let me
So
see,
here,
but
he kind of like attached something underneath that kind of talked about it.
just my first reaction is, isn't it a bullish indicator that America is starting to reindustrialize? Isn't that a good thing for the American economy, right? Long term, it's a great thing. Short term, yeah, there's going to be some, adjustment phase. But if you're betting on the currency, the dollar, and you have a prosperous, self-sustainable, manufacturing base, I think that's something these other countries are going to take into consideration.
Historically, like if you have a strong manufacturing base, like you want your currency to be weaker because then it's more attractive for people to do more business, buy more stuff, which fosters more manufacturing, more jobs. So with Trump essentially in the administration, essentially like saying, hey, we need to rebalance trade, we need to discuss a lot of these relationships, that has spooked the entire world because historically the U.S. prints dollars and exports that to the world, and it's kind of like this idea of exorbitant privilege. But it does absolutely. It's like this idea of what we call the Triffin's dilemma, where it does hurt the country that's doing that, the global reserve currency, which is us, because over time our manufacturing base does get hollowed out, and then it becomes a national security problem at some point where you can't make medicine, you can't make weapons, you can't make anything, and like we're the wealthiest country, the largest country. It's like, but hey, if we go to war, we can't produce anything. There are national security concerns there, right? And again, I had this discussion with Dominic Frisby when we talked about the Civil War and why the Civil War occurred and how the War of 1812 caused, the South to actually advocate for tariffs that would hurt them initially, basically saying, hey, put some tariffs in place because we got to have some domestic production because in case we get in another war and our enemies cut off our supply of goods, we got to be able to make stuff in the U.S., right? So the tariffs that were put into place initially were supported largely by the South, who had to suffer the cost because they were importing everything and now they had to pay more. But they're like, no, this is important. We have to do this for our national security purposes. Obviously, with the tax, the rate of those tariffs was discussed, and then over time it slowly increased, which caused a lot of problems between the North and the South, which was a large part of why the Civil War happened. But we're seeing something similar now. We're at a point where we don't really have any manufacturing. We import all of our medicines, all of our stuff. Like, what happens if another manufactured coronavirus comes out of the lab again and wipes out another million people or whatever, right? Like, we got to be able to make medicine here. We have to be able to make steel here. We have to be able to build ships. We have to be able to have weapons. So some level of protection to the domestic economy. So we have those things for national security purposes, I think makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the question is, what is that right level? I don't know if it's quite the extent of what the Trump administration wants, right? Like, they want tons of all this stuff to come back. Maybe we should, I don't think we should be making, we should have a couple ability to make shirts and some of those things here, but, we want to import, we want, robot factories, drone factories, like all these future technology. We want that production here. We don't necessarily, we have cars and stuff being made, Teslas are being made here, all that stuff, but we don't necessarily want little worthless widgets being made here and all that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting question, right? And it's a double-edged sword. There's pros, there's cons, right? Like less free trade it does raise costs. It does pass through costs to consumers. But how many worthless little widgets does everybody need? Little toys, all this nonsense. Like, is that really the American dream? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of questions, and it's not black and white. It's definitely, there's shades of gray. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
I think that's a great point. I think also with social media, people are making these little widgets online on TikTok and stuff. So leave it to the individuals to do that and support the small businesses. But yeah, great point.
So interesting.
I just pulled up. I had Grok give us some more insights on this. Does this answer any of your other, because the overall sentiment was that dollars declining in value and power and overall national confidence and global confidence and so with BRICS and all that. So go ahead.
So I was going to read the last two paragraphs because I thought they were interesting. This surge in dollar usage aligns with American first policies, including tighter borders and tariffs, which have bolstered global confidence in the U.S. economy. Because if you listen to the media, they'll tell you that the complete opposite of that. It's like the world is going to end because we're rebalancing some trading relationships. But then they say, as noted in the White House memorandum from January 2025, while the dollar's role in 88% of foreign exchange transactions in 2022 underscores its entrenched position, however, the dollar's strength in payments contrasts with its declining share in global foreign reserves, dropping from 71% in 1999 to 59% by 2024 per IMF data, highlighting a nuanced shift where countries may use the dollar for transactions, but diversifying reserves into assets like gold or euros, or in my mind, Bitcoin as well now, as suggested by another ex-post it references, right? So I think that's another interesting way to look at it is that, there are less buyers of nation states buying U.S. treasuries, which is U.S. debt, but the U.S. dollar is still the best, currency historically to use for day-to-day transactions, and the usage of it to transact is accelerating. So, some interesting points and counterfactuals there.
And American first doesn't mean America only. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I think that was a part of Bassent's messaging today. He came out and kind of said that, like, hey, America first doesn't mean America only, like kind of what you just said. So that's pretty new. All right, Paul, let's take us to the next take. Probably going to get a couple more in here and call it a day. But, here's an update from Trump. He posted this live. I read it earlier today, a couple hours ago. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. This statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, and that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama, and is not even a point of discussion. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory. But if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting why did he to save on average 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We are very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess that would have never started if I were president. I love how Trump just like lays it all out. Like he's not wrong. I mean, like, you know, when you reach a settlement on something like this, like nobody's gonna win, get everything they want, right? Like it's just, you know, there are two parties in negotiation, and one has more cards than the other, and like that's just the reality. Like the reality on the ground is like Russia has taken these like different regions, and like they are in control. So like, do you want to continue to fight and have thousands of people die every day for the next fucking 5 years and then never have a resolution, or, you know, can we find something that's an off ramp for this to get back to fostering, you know, better economic cooperation, even with nations and countries we don't fully always agree with, and have a more peaceful world? Obviously I can look at this objectively and say that, and at the same time, like there was no reason for Putin to invade Ukraine. Like that could have been solved diplomatically. There didn't need to be a violent, you know, he took his troops, brought them across the border. He started the conflict, no doubt. Like you can accept both of those points. It doesn't have to be black and white. Like you can accept the fact that yes, Russia started the war. Were they provoked? Did they have grievances that they had voiced for years? Yes, you can also accept that, but still they didn't. They took the first violent action, whether it was just based off bad intelligence or whatever. While at the same time recognizing where we're at right now, right? Like this is where we're at. This is the cards. Let's get this shit done. Let's move on and have a more peaceful world. That's the way I think about it. That's a cool post by Kraken. 14 years ago today, Satoshi sent his final message. I've moved on to other things. Bitcoin is in good hands. What things did he move on to? Wrong answers only. Day trading altcoins and regretting it. Creating an exchange called Kraken. Touching grass. Oh, that's funny. Building spaceships to return home. All right, Paul, give us one more take for the day. We'll close out.
Okay, I have one I've been holding in the chamber.
All right, let's see it. Is it aliens? Is it something way out there? What do you got?
Yeah, it's, you know, essentially I have all the answers to why the pyramids were built, who built them, what's underneath them. But I got to introduce you to my sources.
Did the pyramids go down? Is it 2 miles or is it just like 500 meters? There's been some different wild exaggerations.
Insane,
Yeah, there's been some wild.
Precisely 3.476 miles.
What is this? This is great.
Let's hear what this little guy has to say.
This is my main source.
Okay, all right.
Put some respect on his name. Here we go.
Welcome to the Talking Baby podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking to the weird-looking person who lives at my house. Thanks for being here, weird-looking person.
Well, thanks for having me. As you know, you are my third favorite person in the world, third behind the two larger people that we also live with. They're both awesome. So cool. You're fine, you know, and right now those two larger people are both busy and not paying attention to me at all, so happy to chat with you.
So to kick things off, I want to ask you a question, and I apologize in advance if it's naive or ignorant. Look, I'm a baby. I don't really know stuff yet, so just keep that in mind. So my question is this. What are you? Like, you clearly seem to be a very different kind of person than I am. Am I right? Like, because like people look different from each other, you know, like different sizes, skin tones, the hair. But you, I have no idea what's going on. Does this make any sense to you? Am I crazy?
Oh, no, dude, you're 100% right. I've had that thought so many times. Look, I don't really know what I am. That's not really the kind of thing I think about or care about. But I do know that I'm significantly different than you and the other people who live in this house. Like, for sure.
Okay. Well, so aside from how weird you look, what are other differences?
Well, for one, I'm not allowed to poo or pee inside the house. So you guys can do it no problem. You know, in your case, you just go in your pants wherever and whenever you want, which, by the way, mad respect. You know, that's one of the things I like the most about you.
I'm actually pooing right now.
Oh, I know. I
Fuck are
can
we
smell
watching,
it.
Paul?
But yeah, for some reason, I can't go in here.
Fuck
You
is
know, when I
this?
first got here, I did it a few
hilarious.
times, but the larger
Oh my
people that
God.
we live with were not into it. So I got the message after a couple weeks.
Huh. I wonder why that is. By the way, still pooing. It is flowing out of me. This is a good one.
I'm aware. You're also peeing. I can smell that too.
I am. Wow, that's impressive. Good nose. I'm going to ask you a last question before I start crying, because I don't love sitting in a pile of what feels like a hot brown cream of broccoli soup for too long. So let me ask you this, and I don't know if you can answer this, but it's what I've been thinking about recently. Why am I here?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, what even is this place? Like where are we and why? You know, I don't remember being here until recently. So, like, where was I before that? You know, like, I'm just constantly looking around going, what the F is any of this? And everyone's just acting like it's normal. We live in this house, and you live here, and I live here. But, like, what? Like, why am I here?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. I actually have to go poo now, so I'm going to go sit by the back door and wait there patiently for an hour or two until someone notices me and lets me out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to start crying anyway because I desperately need to get out of this cauldron of watery butt porridge. Wah!
AI is getting real crazy.
Since Ronan couldn't make it today, I thought
That,
we'd include.
That's wild. Well, guys, it's been one hell of a podcast recording with you both. We got touched on a lot of stuff today. Thanks for being on. That's a wrap.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
For the listeners.